Holla ballers, let's get furious! I want to get angry. Yeah, I do, baby. Fury Warrior. Let's talk about the Fury Warrior. Patch 5.05 is when this is being recorded. That means Mists of Pandaria is out. We are, of course, level 90. And we're going to kick some ass, baby. We're going to tear it up. Fury. Fury's changed a hell of a lot. Fury is an all new ball game, ballers. So we're going to jump into it there. Anything you are specifically looking for, use the links on the side. Good. Let's continue on. Okay, Fury Warriors. Boomf. Let's jump into the specialization right here. We get Bloodthirst, we get Crazed Berserker, we get Wild Strike. Not as awesome as it sounds. And Raging Blow. Raging Blow. Pretty cool. Okay, talents first of all, let's talk about it. Mobility. There's only realistically one choice for this, especially while you're doing your 5-mans. You've just dinged, you're level 90, you want to get kicking some serious butt, you want to smack King Kong right in the face. I recommend you go with Juggernaut. Get your charge every 12 seconds, regularly there, always there when you need it. It doesn't matter too much for bosses. With bosses, you generally stood there all the time. I will say, though, that some bosses have that AoE effects in the new raids, where you're going to have to run out for a few moments. Every time that happened to me, Juggernaut was always back off cooldown, or I had Heroic Leap. Either way, I could get back in time. Never saw the need for Double Time or Warbringer, so I recommend you roll with that Juggernaut. At level 30, we get some sort of survivability stuff. This stuff is all finalized now. Always got to be Impending Victory. There is just no justification, realistically, for any of these things. Some people's like, well, you know, Enrage Regeneration heals me a little bit more. Yeah, it also costs you 60 Rage, which is more DPS. Second Wind, you know, it's 35% health, it's passive. If you're down to 35% health, you're likely to be dying. Impending Victory, 10 Rage. Guarantees 10% of your maximum health. If you're lucky enough to have gibbed some mob, you will get 20% of your maximum health. A huge heal on demand the second you need it without costing you a lot of DPS. Brilliant little spell. Not only does it heal you, does some damage. Impending Victory has to be the only choice. The next one is some sort of CC ability. We may get called upon to kite at some point, in which case Piercing Howl will be the way to go. Staggering Shout is generally bullshit. There has been no real use for Staggering Shout so far, especially as the mobs need to be snared in order to become rooted. That means it needs some teamwork, and World of Warcraft does not promote teamwork. I kid, but in general, Staggering Shout sucks balls. Disrupting Shout, however, while you're running in your 5-man dungeons and in your raids, DPSing that trash down, helps out your tanks immensely. We always get those tanks who just don't like interrupting, do not like creating a decent death ball so we can get our balls in there and start DPSing the crap out of stuff. Disrupting Shout will help them out. Not only does it interrupt spells being cast on you, it interrupts spells being cast on the tank, it also allows you to pick up those stray mobs and bring them into the pack and do some deeps. Our next choice is some sort of DPS cooldown. Some people love Bladestorm, and I don't blame you. Bladestorm is a glorious, glorious tear them right up ability. It's pretty close to Dragon Roar, but it has one major letdown, and that is that it does damage over 6 seconds. In that 6 seconds, you cannot do a damn thing. You lose things like your Bloodthirst and your Colossus Smash and your Berserker Rage and all this other great stuff. Dragon Roar is awesome. It's on a shorter cooldown, which means it lines up nicely with Berserker Rage. We're going to get to the reason why that's super awesome. It's always a crit, and we can do other things. It's an instant cast spell. It smashes them right in the face. It's got to be Dragon Roar. It is the highest DPS so far mathematically, and it's generally just all-round better. Okay, go with your Dragon Roar. The next one is some sort of raid utility. Mass Spell Reflection is going to be the way to go for your 5-mans, okay? In your 5-man heroics, while you're grinding your gear, you've got to get that Mass Spell Reflection on the go. That is the position I'm in right now. However, raid-wise, not too great, ballers. It's just not that great in a raid situation. However, we look at things like Safeguard and Vigilance. Little bit scary, especially as a DPS warrior. There is some cheesing that can be done with Berserker Stance, which of course now gives us Rage if we take damage. If you're not sure about what's happened to the stances, let me just fill you in. Battle Stance now gives us Rage for our attacks. If we go to Berserker Stance, we get 50% of the rage from attacks that we would get from Battle Stance, but we also gain rage from damage taken, which means in some instances it can be a decent DPS increase to say, holy shit, that big bomb of death is about to land on the raid, we all need to soak it. Well, trollolol, I'm switching to Berserker Stance, and I'm going to get myself a shit ton more rage to do a lot more DPS. Be aware of that as a nice little DPS cooldown. It's very nice. Vigilance. Focus your protective gaze on a party or raid member, transferring 30% of that damage taken to you for 12 seconds. This is handy if a DPSer or a healer needs it. You don't want to be throwing this on the tank unless you're prepared to blow a shield wall along with it and it's majorly needed. The same with Safeguard. We don't like intervening people who are taking huge melee hits from bosses. However, regardless of intervening a melee hit, even if we don't, we do reduce the damage taken by certain raid members by 20% for 6 seconds. There is a call for this kind of stuff in the MOP raids. There certainly is. If your raid should need it, be ready, pack a tome with a clear mind, get ready to switch into it should you be needed. Just be careful, okay? The last one is the DPS cooldown. Avatar, of course, is awesomeness. It looks cool, gives us 30% extra rage and 20% extra damage done. It lines up perfectly with Skull Banner. It lines up nicely with having our Dragon Roar. We should have casted one when we first casted our Avatar, and then we should have another one ready to go when our Avatar is coming back. Bloodbath mathematically does more damage. However, it relies on essentially perfect play to get the best out of Bloodbath. Avatar does not. There is always this moment when we look at things like simulations and spreadsheets of ultimate data showing all sorts of crazy things going on in ideal perfect play where we maximize every single global cooldown down to a T. We tend not to be able to do that in any raid regardless of player skill. Even the best players in the world cannot maximize every single second of every single play unless they are in absolutely god mode form, which is very rare. Bloodbath on a short 1 minute cooldown lines up quite nicely with Dragon Roar, so we'll always get a Dragon Roared Bloodbath. It's just, I didn't like it personally. Mathematically, it should give you a DPS increase. I just think overall, for what I'm doing, Avatar is better. I just prefer Avatar for its utility, its strengths, and the difference mathematically between Avatar and Bloodbath is minuscule. It's really minor. Avatar is the way to go. Stormbolt's not even a look in, unfortunately. Fuck Stormbolt, it's a bag of shit. Fuck off, go bye. Bye, 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 bye. The choices between Avatar and Bloodbath, I leave it to you. I leave it to you, but I would seriously recommend Avatar. I would really recommend Avatar. Unless it's a boss. There are a couple of bosses in MOP that take increased damage for very short periods of time, which means having a 1 minute DPS cooldown becomes more and more beneficial to you. Therefore, Bloodbath would be the obvious choice. So obviously, pack your tome with a clear mind. When you come up against those bosses, feel free to switch over to Bloodbath. In general, though, roll with the Avatar. You're going to be in good shape. Let's talk some glyphs. Now, the glyph choices are pretty nice for Fury, actually. We've got some good utility choices. Let me talk about the ones you should be taking. Firstly, Glyph of Unending Rage. Increase your maximum rage by 20. It gives you 120 rage, and that also allows you to have some mistakes. Gives you some freedom in the spec. Choosing when to Heroic Strike, we're going to talk about that in the rotation section, is always a difficult choice. Should I Heroic Strike now or not? Will that screw me up? Having the fact that we can have an extra 20 rage to play with actually makes it very beneficial to have that leeway and give some extra thinking time on it, okay? So your Unending Rage is a really nice glyph to carry. We also carry Glyph of Recklessness. Decreases the crit chance, but extends its duration. So we'll have a higher crit chance overall during our cooldowns, such as Avatar and, of course, Skull Banner. We'll have this longer duration of a higher crit chance. So instead of having a little minuscule burst of critical strike chance, we have a higher crit chance for an extended period of time while our cooldowns are up. So you can imagine you're blowing potions in your raids, you're doing all this kind of cool stuff. You've got Bloodlust, you've got Heroism, you've got whatever it is, you've got Avatar going, you've got all this stuff happening at the same time. Glyph of Recklessness gives you an increased critical strike chance over the whole duration and is therefore a general DPS increase. Your third one is your choice depending on whether you're raiding or doing 5-mans. I often hate the fact that there's tanks that don't have some sort of armor debuff. So I always bring along the Glyph of Colossus Smash. It's not as great for Fury, because Colossus Smash doesn't instantly reset for us. We don't have that chance for it to reset. That's cool, but I always like to get the Sunder Armor on. It is a passive DPS increase, and there's not a lot of tanks in our 5-mans who always Sunder Armor, and certainly don't Sunder Armor all the trash that we happen to be DPSing. Therefore, Colossus Smash Glyph is a passive DPS increase for me. However, if you are in a group and you guarantee that you're going to have Sunder Armor on, Glyph of Colossus Smash is completely useless to you, other than providing maybe a 1 second increased chance of getting 3 stacks up, which can be helpful sometimes, but not all the time. We have some other choices to pick up. Now, Glyph of Rude Interruption, I haven't even learnt it yet, as I'm not doing that much. can provide a much larger DPS increase than Glyph of Colossus Smash, even in the 5-mans. So be aware that if you are a baller at interrupting, especially now we've got Disrupting Shout as well, Glyph of Interruption is going to give you a 6% damage increase, just passively going to give you that. Always nice if you are the guy doing the interrupts. You are the man, you're going to be getting it. The other one is if you're going to be doing a ton of AoE. Glyph of Whirlwind comes in very, very nicely here, guys. Really nice. Glyph of Radius of Whirlwind by 4 yards. Tanks often have mobs moving around, there's casters logged all over the place, and generally there's a huge amount of mobs, and we're in a raid, then there could be 2 tanks, and they're not tanking exactly next to each other. Having that extra 4 yards on your Whirlwind is really, really nice. It's super nice, believe me. So make sure you get that Whirlwind, and you're always going to have a good time if you're going to be doing a ton of AoE. The rest stuff's pretty cool. Your Raging Blow hits increase the damage of your next Whirlwind. Again, if you're going to do major AoE, perhaps you want to take that over your Unending Rage. You're not going to Rage Cap while doing serious AoE. Believe me, you're not going to do it. And therefore you'll get an extra 10% damage bonus. But that's if you're doing consistent AoE. I'm not talking about mobs just randomly spawning. We jump into the AoE situation. It's not going to be that beneficial to you, believe me. But those are your choices for your glyphs that I recommend. For my 5-mans, that's how I'm rolling. Unending Rage, Glyph of Wreck, and of course Colossus Smash. Okay, let's talk about your reforging and your gemming. Interesting change by Blizzard towards the Warrior, and that is that they wanted to make secondary stats more beneficial. What are your secondary stats? Those are things like crit, haste, hit, expertise, mastery, those kind of things. They wanted to make them more beneficial, just to stop people out and out gemming strength. Unfortunately, due to the way the mechanics of the Warrior work, they went a little bit overboard. And now critical strike rating is way ahead of strength. We are no longer gemming strength, my friends. We're not doing it. And we are reforging to as much critical strike rating as possible. This helm that I picked up, I instantly, as a dual crafter, stuck in 480 critical strike rating. If you have a yellow socket, you are sticking a huge crit gem in there. If you have a red socket, you are gemming a nice crit strength gem, and so on and so forth. You can see all the gems you should be using listed on the side. You're still going to roll with the Strength Crit Meta Gem. That's going to be exactly the same. Down to your reforging, you need to get hit capped. Luckily, Blizzard has included these readings, so we can see if we are hit or expertise capped. Very difficult to get that in the early stages of a game, especially while we're still in our greens and stuff like that. This trinket is a godsend. Make sure you pick it up if you haven't seen it. If you've just capped, go and get one. They're super cheap, and look what you can put in it. You choose what stats you want. I now have a hit, crit, expertise trinket. This is possibly the most overpowered thing you could possibly get. It's really amazing, and it's super cheap. Go and pick it up. Your auction house will have them. It's called the Ghost Iron Dragonling. It'll make your life so much easier. So much easier. Other than that, your priorities are simple. Hit and expertise cap immediately, as soon as possible. There is no larger DPS increase than hit and expertise capping. There is nothing, bar none. Get hit and expertise capped. Believe me, trust me. As you can see, even now, I have a 0.6% chance to miss with my hit, and my expertise is capped. My expertise is nice and capped. My dodge chance is 0.00. You need about 2,500 rating for expertise cap, so I'm 100 rating over. Nothing special in this day and age, where trinkets are giving you around 600 rating. So I could do with a touch more hit, I will get there. Other than that, you are reforging to as much crit as possible. If you get crit, let's see that, reforging away from haste towards mastery. Your priorities are simple. Hit and expertise, critical strike rating, then you want your mastery, then you want your haste. Simple as. Haste is the worst stat. Get rid of as much haste as possible, get as much mastery, but make sure you get crit as a priority after the hit and expertise. You can see crit, mastery, fine with that. Expertise, hit, mastery, getting rid of that haste again. Moving down here, getting rid of the expertise and balancing it out with some hits. Moving down here, you can see again, haste, mastery, get rid of the haste and get the hit up. You can see so much reforging has gone into making sure we have that crit and hit and expertise cap. So worth it, guys. So worth it. Make sure you get it. Let's on to the rotation. And why is crit so beneficial? Well, as a Fury Warrior, we rely on enrage. We just need to be enraged. Being enraged gives us a huge damage bonus. A huge damage bonus. Being enraged is a huge priority. Let me open up again for you there. Enrage. Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst, and Colossus Smash critical strikes and critical blocks enrage you, generating 10 rage and increasing physical damage done by 10% for 6 seconds. Our Mastery, Unshackled Fury, increases the physical damage done while enraged by 80%. So you can see how Mastery comes in there. Now, this comes from critical strikes. Bloodthirst and Colossus Smash critical strikes cause this enrage effect, which cause a 10% damage increase. No, they cause an 18% damage increase on top of that. Therefore, critting with our Bloodthirst and our Colossus Smash is very important. Not only that, but we can actually enrage ourselves using Berserker Rage, which means we have some sort of tricky rotation that's a little bit forgiving, but we want to prioritize our Raging Blow. So what do we want to do? We'll start DPSing. Our Bloodthirst generates rage, therefore we want to use as many Bloodthirsts as possible. Now I've crit my Colossus Smash, that has activated my Raging Blow. When we want to use Raging Blow, as much as possible, we want to use it while the Colossus Smash debuff is in effect. Therefore, we can be a little bit picky with our Berserker Rage, because we want to maximize our Raging Blow, our hardest hitting ability, our Raging Blow. Colossus Smash, let me just get rid of this. So I've got a Colossus Smash debuff up. Now I'm going to use my Berserker Rage to get an extra one in there, an extra Raging Blow, just maximizing that damage as much as humanly possible. Some of you are going to ask, is it Titan's Grip or Single-Minded Fury? They're both pretty similar. Titan's Grip is slightly ahead. No big deal. Don't worry about it if you only get one-handers. It's not a huge problem. Moving on, remember we need to be enraged in order to get these damage bonuses, which means we need to be a little bit careful with what we do while we're not enraged, such as Dragon Roar. Now I'm enraged, I want to use my Dragon Roar. I get 140 odd K Dragon Roar, I also get that, and I get some more Raging Blows. We want to be making sure we're using major DPS cooldowns, such as Berserker Rage. It is now a major DPS cooldown, Dragon Roar, Avatar, all this kind of stuff, Skull Banner, whilst we are enraged, because we get such a huge damage bonus from it. We also need to be careful with what we spend our rage on while we're not enraged. It's no good spamming all your rage, then becoming enraged, and using weak attacks following it. It's much better to be planning ahead. This is again why your Glyph of Unending Rage allows you some more freedom to pick and choose what you want to do. Our basic rotation is this: Bloodthirst on cooldown, Colossus Smash on cooldown. If we're not enraged and Colossus Smash is on, then definitely use your Berserker Rage. And while we're waiting for something to happen, we use Wild Strike. Now, Wild Strike sounds cool. It's the suckiest ability in history. I've never heard such a pussy-ass ability ever. I don't like Wild Strike at all. It's just a rage dump. Wild Strike is simply a rage dump. If we should happen to end up over 80 rage, and certainly we are enraged, so we've got a lot of rage and we're enraged, we can't use another Raging Blow, Heroic Strike is certainly there to be used. If we're over 80 rage, feel free to use your Heroic Strike and get on with the game. Okay? Very simple rotation. Your Bloodthirst on cooldown, Colossus Smash on cooldown. Try and just, the tricky part of this, the priority to be done, is quite simply try and time your Raging Blows to be up with Colossus Smash. Use your Berserker Rage as much as possible. It's a short cooldown, 30-second cooldown. Try and use it as much as possible, but try and time it a little bit with Colossus Smash, and then just be a little bit wary of what abilities you use whilst not enraged. You want to be enraged while you use major DPS abilities. Spamming things like Heroic Strike definitely wants to be under the effects of an enrage ability. Make the best use of it. You are just doing flat out less damage whilst not enraged, and get as much crit as possible to increase your enrage time. So now you want to see how this all plays out. I'm going to jump into a heroic right now, ballers. Join me, and let's see how we rock and roll.